Hey guys, it's Alex from Dental Growth, and in this video I wanted to talk about how to analyze dental marketing campaigns the right way. One big question I get when I'm talking to other agencies or dental practices, consulting with different people about how their campaign's doing or how to know when things are going well, when they're not. It's really good to have a roadmap and a mindset and benchmarks to compare yourself to when you're running a campaign to determine how things are going. So let's go over all of that in this presentation. So a little bit about me. I'm an actively practicing dentist here in the US. And what's cool is I have a nice blend of a dental background and a background in digital marketing. So I'm able to kind of see both sides of the coin and really optimize this system from the dental perspective and also from a marketing perspective. And I've spent well over $250,000 in ad spend personally across several industries. Our main goal is to help dental practices and others with their marketing and advertising. So at Dental Growth, we specialize in digital advertising and conversion processes for dental practices. So not only the media buying and the ads, but also the lead management in the back end, getting these new patients to show and start and become loyal new patients for your practice. So this is for newer practices looking to grow, or even established practices looking to revitalize and grow, maybe add a treatment discipline to your practice, or for practices looking to kind of really expand to new locations. And just some screenshots here, we've done hundreds of thousands in sales over the years with ad spend, $92,000 in sales here and $90,000 spent in this ad account. $59,000 in sales here, $29K here, $55K here. And then here's just an example of some of our results. Cost per lead of $6 per implant lead in this case in one day. So imagine getting like 7 people interested in implants in a single day for your practice and what that can do for you. Here we spent $1,000, we got 111 leads at $9 a lead. And so the first tip I have when analyzing your dental marketing campaigns is, first thing going into your campaigns, you wanna be testing, you wanna be finding what's really going to work well for your situation. What I like to advise people to do is to do macro testing in the beginning and then micro test. So what that means is in the beginning, we don't wanna test one picture with one word changed in each. There's something to be said for scientific split testing where you're just changing one variable at a time. But in my opinion, that's after you do a macro test where you test what I like to call widely different things so that you can really start to hone in on, from a macro sense, what's working, right? If we just want to advertise for Invisalign and all we do is we have a picture of someone smiling, well, now we're completely missing the other types of ad creatives like maybe graphics or an office tour or an office testimonial from a satisfied new patient or a before and after, right? We're only testing one specific type of thing and changing one thing at a time. So you're gonna be kind of boxed into the results that that type of advertising can get you, right? So we like to macro test different types of creative in the beginning. So as you can see here, we have a patient and a doctor. Maybe that's an office testimonial or some B-roll of your provider interacting with patients. Or you can have like some clinical photography, or you can have some more, just showing off a bright smile and that type of thing. So we like to macro test in the beginning and then hone in on what's working. So once we get to the micro testing stage, maybe we've found that the clinical photography does really well. We can then spin that off into similar clinical photography. So we found that, this picture of a tooth does really well. So let's maybe take other pictures of teeth, right? And so now we're kind of spinning off and doing micro tests where we're starting to change one variable at a time and really honing in and scaling up on what's really working efficiently. So maybe we're testing images versus videos. Maybe we're testing real office pictures and photography and videography versus graphics. Or maybe we're doing offers versus no offer. Maybe just like talking about testimonials and satisfied patients or your accolades or your attributes. And then maybe we're even testing different types of funnels where we're chatting with people in Messenger versus a lead form versus direct to call, and even more that we test, okay? So moving on to the next step here, testing different proven offers and angles, right? If we're just throwing up a picture of our office or our doc and advertising, hey guys, we're a dentist in this area, you're probably not going to be, getting the best results that you could be. So free consultation for, some of your higher ticket stuff like implants, Invisalign, full arch, etc. Some type of dollar amount off for certain treatments like a new patient special, $500 off Invisalign, things like that, right? Or you can advertise for emergencies specifically. A lot of people are just in need, and Facebook and Instagram is pretty good at finding those people actually algorithmically. So emergencies, people that are looking for providers that accept a certain insurance, and also Spanish speaking ad sets, because there's a large percentage of people that speak Spanish in your local area for most people. So tapping into that market is another way to increase your lead flow, get more leads, and get more new patients. So And then there's even more angles and offers that you can do, guys, but here's a couple that we found to work pretty well. And then key performance indicators. So now we're starting to get into what benchmarks can we put ourselves next to and really determine how we're doing from a number perspective. So our click-through rate, right? We want to make sure that people are clicking into our ad at a good, efficient rate. And typically we've found that a click-through rate of at least 2 to 3% is really good. So if we can get 2 or 3% of people scrolling by to click into our ad, that's a pretty good start. And then from there, what is our cost per click? Typically we find a good cost per click is something like $2. You know, if we have a cost per click of $5 to $10, that's pretty expensive. You know, we are going to want cheaper clicks than that. For each click, it'll take several clicks for someone to even fill out a lead form or create an inquiry. So if we're getting a cost per click of like $10, that means our cost per lead is going to be like $50 or something. Our goal for a cost per lead is like $10 or so. And so after our cost per click, our cost per link click, you know, that's someone clicking into our ad and then clicking into our in-app form. And typically we found a good cost per link click is something like $4 or so, $2 to $4, someone clicking into our in-app form, potentially going to submit that form. CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions. And typically we've found a good CPM is somewhere around $10 to $20, $25 or so. That's just how much Facebook is charging you for 1,000 people to see your ad post. And then as I mentioned, our cost per lead, if we're getting a form fill inquiry for around $10 or so, give or take, we've gotten down to as low as $5 per lead or, you know, $15 per really qualified form lead. That's pretty solid. And that's kind of where we want to be on that side of things. And then after that, once we get that form fill inquiry, you know, what's our cost per contact, right? How much is it costing us on average to get on the phone with somebody and actually be conversing with a potential new patient? And then from there, how much is it costing for us to book an appointment? And then from there, how much is it costing us to get a showed appointment? And then how much does it cost for us to ultimately acquire a patient on average, right? So we track all these metrics and we go over all of that with our clients at Dental Growth, how to optimize these lead management best practices so that you can get the best results for your marketing. So if you're spending, say, $30 on an ad set, say an insurance ad set, right? And typically we're aiming for $5 to $10 to $15 leads and we've spent $40 and we haven't gotten a single lead. That's when at that point I would probably go ahead and turn off that campaign, or at least rotate in some new creatives or refresh it in some way. As we can see here in point number 5, I typically wait for about 2 to 3x our KPI or key performance indicator to kind of know when it's time for something to change because we're not getting the results that we should be. Because sometimes you might get, you know, the first couple days of spend, you might be getting, you know, slightly more expensive leads, but over time that should really even out to where we want to be. And if it's just not getting there, around 2 to 3x our key performance indicator, I'll go ahead and make a decision there. So cut losers and scale and spin off the winners, as I like to say. And then ultimately, we also want to be analyzing our back end or in-office results. So, you know, from an anecdotal and just a feel perspective, you know, how are these consults going? How are these appointments going for, say, your Spanish-speaking patients versus your implant consultations versus your new patients, right? Oh, I found that just our new patient special, it's really easy to kind of talk to these patients. It seems like all the expectations are good. So maybe we want to just focus on those. So it's important to analyze kind of from an in-office perspective. How are things going for your staff? Are things easier working with this type of treatment or this type of lead versus another? So that'll also factor into where we allocate budget in our marketing. And then ultimately analyzing your lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer, or LTV to CAC ratio. So if on average it's costing us, say, you know, $100 to acquire a general dentistry new patient, you know, that LTV on that patient is, you know, in my opinion, theoretically at least a couple $1,000s. So if we're acquiring these couple $1,000 patients for $100 a piece on average, that's a great LTV to CAC ratio, and we want to continue to advertise for that. Whereas if our cost to acquire a new patient is $2,000 for, you know, a cleaning, that's probably not a profitable LTV to CAC. So we ultimately want to go off of our base CAC, cost to acquire a new patient. So that is kind of the bottom of the funnel metric that we do want to make sure is in check. And typically it costs, you know, just to give you guys an idea, it costs a couple $100 on average typically to acquire a new patient. Now that can vary depending on the type of treatment, right? Like full arch versus a general dentistry new patient. The cost to acquire a new patient is different depending on what you're advertising for. But we ultimately always want to be tracking that LTV to CAC ratio to make sure that ultimately our marketing is profitable and effective. And then finally, troubleshooting. So when we're analyzing our dental marketing, What I like to do is take a waterfall approach. So as you can see here on the bottom picture, a waterfall from the perspective of maybe it's bouncing off of a couple rocks and, there's multiple steps, right? And it starts at the flow at the top. So typically first I want to make sure we're getting lead flow first and foremost. Last thing we want is to turn on a campaign, we've spent $100 and we've gotten one lead. That's not good. What I'd much rather us is spend $100 and we got 30 leads, right? And then we start to sift through and say, okay, actually I like these 20 leads and these 10 leads weren't quite as good for whatever reason, right? So typically first I optimize for lead flow quantity, and then I go in and add the necessary filters. Okay, maybe there's a price question that's throwing people off. Let's go in and add that filter. Maybe a form question. Maybe it's some messaging in our ad. Maybe we talk about that price obstacle more in the ad copy or put it in the creative itself to kind of optimize for quality a little bit more. Then we want to optimize for a good cost per phone call. So we're making sure that we're getting in touch with as many of these inquiries as possible on the phone, having a great conversation. And then we're using certain lead management techniques that I go into my other videos and that we help our practices on to really have a great cost per booked appointment. So we're doing all the necessary things on the phone call, making sure our speed to lead is dialed in. And then from there, we go into all of our show rate techniques to get a really good showed appointment rate, because as you guys may quickly learn, new patients, they don't necessarily have an established relationship with you or know much about you yet. So we have a lot of show rate techniques that we help our practices with to help them get the best cost per showed appointment. And then from there, ultimately, the best cost to acquire a new patient. So at each step of the way, we're implementing a handful of techniques that we work with our practices on to make sure that all of these metrics are dialed in. And I like to visualize this from a waterfall perspective. So I like to go from a downstream perspective when we're troubleshooting our bottlenecks. So first, do we have a good lead flow? Then do we have a good cost per contact? Good cost per appointment, good cost per showed appointment, and then ultimately a good cost to acquire a patient. So I typically start with the earlier stages and then just go down the funnel or down the waterfall from there in a very chronological fashion. And that'll make sure that we're troubleshooting and diagnosing exactly where in our campaign maybe there's a bottleneck, right? And if we have our KPIs in mind, and then we're also fixing any problems that we find at each stage in the waterfall, we'll have a nice profitable campaign. So guys, ultimately that's pretty much the main overview of how to really analyze your dental marketing campaigns and make sure you have a really nice effective campaign from the get-go. And one last tip I would just say is it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So make sure you're enjoying the process, learning a lot, growing as a person, and that's ultimately how I've found that you make the most progress in life and you stay consistent and you ultimately succeed and find joy in the things that you do. So with that being said, guys, it's been Alex from Dental Growth. If you are a dental practice looking to work with someone on building an effective dental marketing campaign, definitely feel free to reach out, click the links in the description. I'd be happy to hop on a call, see if we can help. And if you're an agency looking to do what you do better and consult with me personally, feel free to click the links in the description below. I'd be happy to chat. And with that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.